Hello, welcome back to my channel. In this video of this series, I would like to dive into the Docker Compose file that serves as the backbone of our scalable Ocean platform. This file manages the infrastructure required for the microservices, ensuring smooth communication and functionality between components like Keycloak, Kafka, and the databases. Alright, so here in this video, that's what I'm going to cover, this file. So this is the first file I'm going to cover because I think it's important for us to know this file, as it is the backbone for the rest of our application. For the rest of the application, we have to run this file every time we want to run the services, and without it we can't get some services interaction with some services. So we have we start off with the version of whatever version number you want to give it, that's fine. And then they are all services, so they go onto the service tag, and in there is the first one I'm looking at, or the first one I've stated here, is the Postgres database. And in this Postgres database, so this first service is the Postgres database. Image is Postgres 16. Environment, and the environment, I've stated Postgres database, and the name I want to give to the database is the Keycloak option. So in the Keycloak, we need to persist the data, otherwise every time you restart and come back, bring the service up and bring the service down, you have to set everything up again. So you need your Keycloak database to persist your data, so that whatever setup you set up in Keycloak is in here. I'm using Docker because it's easier. Docker image is easier. You could also download Keycloak, but I use Docker because it's easier to manage and bring the service up and down, and you could change the versions if you need to. Anyway, so the next bit section of this part of the service is the Postgres user. So I'm using Postgres as a user. This is the default user that comes with Postgres, and then I've got password set up for it. So I already have a database in Postgres, and I'm using pg admin, and I've set this up as this data this password. Yeah, so that I'm using the same password because I'm using the same database. The volume is Postgres hyphen or dash data colon /var /lib lib /Postgres SQL /data. That is, if you go onto any website or Keycloak Docker repository, this is what they state. This is the first thing they state. The port I'm using, this is the default port, 5432. So we are porting 5432 to this, so we are porting this one to here so that we cannot use that port. Networks is Microservices -net. I mean, this is what I use. So when it comes to networks, you have to be very careful. This is what I set up from the beginning, so I've left it like that. If you want to delete a network and put in another, you have to go through a whole lot of stuff. If you don't do it properly, it won't work. So be careful about networks when setting up networks in Keycloak. So choose what you want correctly. Then these are just a thing to just check the health of the database. You don't need it. Once you have these lot at the top here, you don't need this bit, but it's just to check the database and do some retrials. So I'm setting the retrials as 5 seconds, intervals 10 seconds. It just do retrials if something isn't right, and it do a health check as well on the database. PG admin, I'm using docker io / pg dpage / pg admin 4, and I'm using the latest version. Container name, I've given it gateway pg admin. That's what I set it up in the beginning. Again, if you want to change your container name, you're gonna have to go through a whole lot of stuff and delete that and put a new one in. Otherwise, it's gonna have conflicts if you don't do it properly. But that's another story. Environment is the pg admin default email, and then I've got an email set up, and then pg default password. This is my password that I've got set up. I mean, you can do environment variables and do that as well, but I just done it for now because in real life you have to use environmental variables. Port, this is the port. We are porting port 80 to 15080. So this is what how we will access PG admin over HTTP port. So that's how we will access admin through port 15080. So it will be localhost 15080, and the volume is what we set up here is PG admin dash data colon /var /lib /pg admin. So you can find all this information online, and then we just set it up to restart unless it is stopped. And then we are stating Keycloak as well. So we are using Docker to run Keycloak and manage Keycloak, which is really good. So this is the container name I'm giving this is the image I'm using. KCDB is this variables I'm setting up here. So Postgres. So I'm setting up that Postgres database. I'm also using KCDB URL is the JDBC PostgreSQL /PostgresDB port 5432 /Keycloak option. So we are we are using the same database here in place here that Keycloak should use that exact database. So this is what you would set it up, and then that database you are using, and the user is Postgres, right? I mean, you can get this information online. This is how you will similarly set yours up. And then the password I'm using, which is exactly the same password as the one I've got here at the top. Right, and then the Keycloak admin, this is the admin user and the password to my Keycloak, and these are the defaults that comes with Keycloak. You can change it if you want, but for now I haven't. I'm just sticking to it, and I'm forwarding this port 8080 to 9098, and the reason why I'm doing that because 8080 is normally used, and I don't like conflict, so I have to port it to another port number. But you can leave it as it is for now. If you think you have conflicts with 8080, then you want to use another port, and that's why I'm using 9098. So I'm saying that this service depends on Postgres database service, which is this service basically at the top here. So without that service going on, don't start this service, and that's the condition I'm giving to Docker. And these lot you don't need to worry, but you do have to set the network, the same network that I've set up for the rest of them. I'm using exactly the same network. Notice that PG admin I do not have network for it, because you will have some problems. I had problems, so I had to take network out of it. The next bit is to start dev. So that's the command that you use to start. Right, I'm going to end here. I'm going to end here because it's running out. I'm running out of time. So I will continue this Docker compose file on the next video. See you then.